My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual, a Newcastle born and bred boy, Mr. Andy Roberts. Welcome, the General.
Good evening, Sasha. How are you?
Well, very good, sir. Tell us, Andy, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Well, you have to go right back, mate, because as you said, I'm Newcastle born and bred, from the Steel City, and the sporting public in Newcastle love to have a sporting team here. So we're well represented by great teams over the years. But I can thank my parents, Sasha, for taking me along to KB United. You know, the infancy of National Soccer League in the 78 season. I can almost tell you the day I fell in love with this game. They call the beautiful game. March 1978, when KB United played Harkawa, Sydney City, there was 18,000 people at the stadium. The ISC, they called it back in the day, now Energy Australia Stadium. And I've got to thank my parents for taking me along at such a young age to witness, this historic, team going out to represent Newcastle at national level. I think they got touched up on the day by Sydney City.
Well,
Almost that was a light bulb moment. I thought to myself, I'm 8 years old, here I am. There's 18,000 people watching my hometown play. And I thought, I'd even said to my parents back in that time, I'm going to do this someday. I want to play for Newcastle, Mum and Dad.
Wow.
And they probably thought, well, good on you, Andrew. And I had to wait until 91 to start my career, but that's the moment.
Oh, fantastic. So, and to be fair, that early Harkawa side, that was star-studded. So, anyone being touched up by that Harkawa side, I think it's okay. But so tell us your first Boyhood club. What was the name of that club?
So I'm a South Wallsend junior, which is a very strong club up here in Newcastle. And I started from the age of 4, Sasha. So I started very young. Started playing the football very young. So I played 2 years at under sixes, and I started when I was 4. And then finished up when I was 16. So I was at the club for 12 years. And in my final year, under 16 level, we were playing at the highest level in the area. We won a grand final, and my dad was the manager. And there's some good players in the team. And then, I spent all my junior career at South Wallsend, and they're still going, and they always have strong teams.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so soon after that, you weren't that much older, you made your way over to the Institute. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was just before that, though, that the Newcastle team was playing in the state league. So It was called Newcastle Austral. So this is before the National League started. That's with the Breakers. So I played my first grade game when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
So, some past greats of the area like Marshall Saper, Flash Jennings, they started very young. And I've seen the interview you've done with Marshall Saper, and he spoke about the time that he got picked for Western Bears, which was a local club in the area. And he played his first grade game when he was 15 or something like that. So here I am, I'm 16, I'm playing, on Saturday I'm playing for under 16 South Wallsend, and then Sundays I was playing for Newcastle Australs in the local competition up against like Adamstown Rosebuds and West Wallsend and Western Bears, seasoned professionals like guys like Flash Jennings and people like that. And I was just like, wow. Here I am, 16 years old, and I'm playing against these guys. And it was a fiery debut. I remember it well, and I actually played up at Western. And that was my start of my fledgling career at a young age. And I spent a couple of years there, and I got spotted, as a matter of fact, when you played the national titles at Park Lee. So I was representing Northern New South Wales, and we were playing against the likes of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia. And I got spotted at the under-17 championships by then Dr. Ron Smith.
Yes.
And I got offered a scholarship to go to the Institute of Sport in 1988, which was the Olympic year.
Fantastic. So how's this? A local boy, Newcastle, 16, still a baby. So what position was in your first senior game? Where did they put you on the park?
Yeah, pretty much where I stayed all my career. So I was a defender mainly.
Yes.
So I was a left back. So, you know, in the winter time, you were playing football. In summertime, I didn't rest. So I was, my fitness and my speed were my assets during my career. And I got to thank my parents for taking me along and joining me up to the surf life saving movement. I was a little nipper.
Okay.
So from when I was 6 to 16, in the summer, I was getting all my fitness on the beach, running on sand, in the soft sand of Nobby's Beach in Newcastle. We were training there a couple of times a week, and every Sunday we'd have a carnival. And yeah, like I said, I was pretty good at that, and got to the state team for little nippers, surf life saving, as a beach sprinter, and doing the beach flags and all that. And I won many state titles on beach flags and beach sprint. And at national level, I got to the under 12s and I actually won the national title for beach sprinting in Tasmania.
That's fantastic. So running on sand, probably putting on the boots and running on land or on grass, that would have felt like a pleasure.
Well, it came very easy because
Yes.
you can imagine, you know, you're getting your fitness running in soft sand. And never tried running in soft sand? It's difficult. So for me, you know, to put on some football boots with, you know, and run on grass was like, I was just sailing across there. So, again, I got to thank my parents for that. And that put me, Sasha, in good stead for the winter season of football, because I was already, like I said, I wasn't resting during the off seasons. I was actually doing something. And most kids at that age were doing something as well, whether they're playing other sports or whatnot. But I was spending all my time on the beach.
Oh, fantastic. And so tell us some of the names. So it was Gary Cole also with Ron Smith there in 88?
There was a great team. I was privileged to spend 12 months down there, and it was, again, an eye-opener for me because, you know, you're full-time, for instance, and I was at that stage. I just finished year 12 up here in Newcastle. So I was going to Bruce TAFE, which is adjacent to the AIS down there. Mm-hmm. So I studied architecture when I wasn't playing my football. We trained twice a day, and that was great. But it was really the first time we were introduced to full-time training. You're exposed to so many other professionals down there, and like you said, you have the likes of Ron Smith and Gary Cole. You know, they've guys had so much influence on my career. And you're training full-time. You're around other professionals, guys your own age. Andy Patterson was a goalkeeper. Steve Mortone. I was the left back. You had Sean Murphy, Dominic Longo, Greg Mills, Ned Zelich, John Gibson, just to name a few in that team. It was a great team.
And so, who would you think out of that group? Who are the players that you thought, oh wow, I think that person's going to go on to bigger and better things? Could you pick it at 17 years old?
Yeah, obviously there's players that stand out and amongst that group, you know. But like we would travel up to Sydney to play against the state league clubs like Blacktown City, Parramatta, Melita, and we're only 17 and 18, and we were playing against, you know, the state league teams as our competition weekly. So we were getting very good competition, and even at a young age. But you know, the tuition and the coaching were given by Ron Smith and Gary Cole was first class. And, you know, obviously, you know, players have gone on, like the likes of Ned Zelich and had careers overseas, and Sean Murphy and so on. And but even then, like Ned couldn't even get into the first 11 down there, Sasha.
Oh, wow.
So he was slightly younger than us. So he spent most of the season on the bench, or he'd come on, but certainly wasn't a first choice 11 player until a couple of guys got injured, and then he got into the team and established himself as, you know, a first 11 player, you know, and then he goes on and scores that famous goal for Australia.
Yes. So this is probably food for thought for those people who may be on the cusp of a side. It's important to stick at it, because you will get your opportunity. Just like Ned did, obviously, that surprises me. But the AIS had a remarkable way in order to sort of take quality players, but then give them a finishing capability. It was a fantastic finishing school. So, in what level, in terms of percentage-wise, do you think in that year did you improve as a player?
So yeah, obviously you're getting the best of coaching, you're getting the best of principles of football. You know, like they taught us the principles of football, and I'd never, heard of that before I went to the AIS. You know, about shape, and it was instilled in us to, players. The systems are not going to win you games. The players who play the systems are going to win you the game, Sasha. So, and all about, when you got the ball, make the field bigger, and when you haven't got the ball, make it smaller. So, we were very well drilled in those principles of football.
And it's amazing now, just these principles of play that probably went away. Ron Smith, who's now back in heading coaching education, is going to be starting bringing those principles of play back. So fantastic sort of full circle story, because those principles that you were taught went away for the last 10 years or so. So we talked about a different framework. So that's excellent that you were taught those principles there at a fantastic finishing academy. So what about did any of you boys get into trouble there up in down there in Canberra, or are you all pretty good boys?
Oh, pretty well behaved, but like we were so busy down there. But it was a great year to be there. Obviously, 1988 was the Olympic year.
Yes.
And it was the Seoul Olympics at the time, and I remember going in there, and it's at a young age, it's my first time away from home, living away from home from my parents, and just opened up my eyes, because you're there living in an apartment with a team of guys that the best in the country. You got everything at your fingertips. You got the cafeteria just over there. You can eat 3 meals a day, and some guys would take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Our diets were pretty strict, so most of the meals were pretty healthy meals, of course. But guys used to get excited when the hamburgers would come out once a week or something like that, or the chocolate mousse and the ice cream after dinner.
Yes.
But it was a fantastic time, and like I said, it was the '88 year of the Seoul Olympics, and we seen the Australian Olympic team gather there, and met some great athletes like Rob De Castella and the basketball teams. I remember one guy, he was so tall. I think he's the tallest guy I've ever seen in my life, and he was 6'11" or 7 foot tall. This basketball. Meeting Andrew Gaze and those guys, Phil Smythe, and that came through in that '88 year, and that was a great time to be down there. That's for sure. Because I only spent 1 year down there, but our farewell party was a pretty good one. So we went into town, and Canberra was pretty famous for a couple of nightclubs, and as an 18-year-old, just going out in the town at the private bin down there.
Happy days.
Place.
Yes.
So, it was funny time, great time.
And you make your way back home after your time in Canberra.
Yeah, I had a good 12 months down there, and there was a time where I was also chosen for the Australian youth squad.
Yes.
Along with a lot of my colleagues that were in the team, and I was the first choice left back, and Les Scheinflug was the coach, and Rob Blanco was the assistant, and we were just about to tour overseas to go through the group games for qualification, and the World Cup was being held in Saudi Arabia. They just built this new stadium, and that was in '89 for the World Youth Cup, and I was chosen as the first choice left back, but I developed a knee complaint which I'd been put up with for at least a couple of years prior. And Ron Smith said to me one day at training, "What are you limping for, Andrew?" And I said, "Oh, I've got this lump underneath my knee, right?" you want to take a look at it? And he sent me to the doctors down there at the AS, and I developed what they call Osgood-Schlatter's disease, which is the chipping of the tibia. And I've been putting up with it for a couple of years, and had the operation, and I was only supposed to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, but I was out for like 2 months. The wound got infected, hence I missed all the qualifiers overseas, and found it tough to get back in the side because most of the guys had, established in the team. And Australia at the very final last qualification, Sasha, it was a very famous game. They were due to play Syria. Yep. And Australia only had to get a draw against the Syrian team to make the final World Cup in Saudi Arabia. And at the 90th minute mark, it was 0-0. And Syria scored in the 93rd minute, and they beat us 1-0.
Yeah.
But it was found that they played a couple of overage players to beat us. So they should have never been there in the first place.
Oh, wow.
But I got a call up to go to the World Cup. So that's just how careers can change. Yes. Dominic Longo and Steve Horvath got injured in that game, and I got the letter somewhere to say it's before mobile phones, of course, and,
yes.
and I got this letter in the mail to say, Andrew, you've been called up if Australia beat Syria for the World Cup in Saudi Arabia, and was never to be.
Yes, sliding door moments. So the next phase of your career. So, firstly, what was Raul Blanco and Les Scheinfeld like in camp?
Oh, they demanded, every time you train, you give your best, and that was another eye opener for me. Coming up against other guys in the team, and being coached by the greats, Les Scheinfeld and Raul Blanco. They sort of went next level, so to speak. The intensity at training. Even in the warm-up, Sasha, Raul Blanco, he had the claps and all the rhythmic stuff that the South Americans developed, and it's just great thinking about it. But I enjoyed those times in camp with the young Socceroos, and things you remember to this day. It's really good. But I came back after that year to Newcastle to play state league and then go on to play national league. So it was a stepping stone.
Fantastic. So you're moving into the Newcastle first team once they got back into the National League. How was that? How was that perceived by the community?
Newcastle were, we've had so many ex-Socceroos come from this area, as you know, as a football person, Sasha. There's so many Socceroos going way back to the day. Some of the oldest clubs still in this land are from Newcastle. You got the likes of Adamstown, Rosebuds, Walls End, West Walls End. From the 1800s. I mean, the first ever goal scored by Australia was Bill Mortar from West Walls End in 1922. So we've got so much history coming through this area. So it was very proud for me to come back and play for my hometown. Because let's not forget, I was that moment that I told you about in 1978, where I said I'm going to play for Newcastle one day to my folks, and I could see that path. It was coming to sort of fruition, and we won a state league title in the Newcastle Austral team, and we were the first ever Newcastle team to win a grand final at state league level. Okay. That was the likes of Troy Halpin in the side, Richie Johnson, that went on to play for Watford for over a decade in the UK. I was the left back at the time. I was coached by a local guy called Peter Dewhurst, and he was well known in the area. Mm-hmm. And so we won that state league against Canberra, and they had Tony Gianasca in goals, Dougie Marcina in the team as well. So it was a good team, but that was the stepping stone. And then next year I played in the first team for the 1990/91 season in the state league. So we were playing against the teams from Sydney, and I was playing actually right back that year. And then because David Jones, that played for KB United, he was at the latter part of his career. He was the left back. But I had a good season, and I got offered a contract by the newly appointed coach Bruce Stow to
Yes.
play with the Breakers, the first season of Newcastle Breakers, because over the years Newcastle have sides like KB United. The halcyon days of KB United was from 78 to 83. And still they hold some of the biggest crowds in National Soccer League history, the old NSL. And then they folded, and then you had Newcastle Rosebuds from the mid-80s to 86, and then they got put out. And there was a gap of about 5 or 6 years, Sasha, before Newcastle were accepted back into the National League. And it was a big moment for the town to be on the highest level back in Australian football. And I got offered a contract at a young age. I played my first game when I was 21, and it's a very proud moment.
Not bad for a young boy looking at that the same team. I'm sure it sort of feels like the home team, and wanting to play for your town, and then taking the pitch. Do you remember the first game in the that you played of that side?
Yeah, I do. The very first game of the 91 season, I didn't get chosen in the team. Okay. And Dominic Longo got injured. But I played the next 25 games.
Yes.
So I got chosen to play. How's this for a debut? It was at Breaker Stadium, October 91, and I'm playing against and marking Paul Trimboli, and I'm playing against South Melbourne. Welcome to the National Soccer League. They got Australian internationals littered through the side. So I'm playing against Paul Trimboli, Paul Wade, Mehmet Jurakovic, Mickey Peterson, Ange Postecoglou, just to name a few.
Yeah, so you wouldn't want Paul to get the ball, but you're lucky that you could have outrun him. So I know you had him covered for pace, that you would have had him covered. But yeah, if he touched the ball and he started dancing, you would have.
That's right. You don't give him opportunities to turn and face goal. So you want him to, as a defender, you try and have your back to your goals type thing. Don't let him turn and face. So
yes.
We end up winning that game anyway.
Oh, happy days.
3-1.
Oh, great.
Great start, great start. I remember to this day it was a, great debut. Personally, the team had just beat, the star-studded South Melbourne side.
Yes.
10,000 people packed in at Breaker Stadium back in the day was like, 50 or 60,000, one of the biggest stadiums. The atmosphere in that ground, that boutique ground was
would have been electric.
It was electric because you could hear almost every comment coming over your way over the fence. So the crowd were within a few meters of the sideline over there at the old stadium. So back in the old NSL days, that's were the case rather than the bigger stadiums they play in now. So one memory of my first game
would have been a great feeling. And so some of the other boys in that early 91 side, you were saying Dominic Longo was in the side. Who else? Who were some of the other companies?
Brad Maloney was just a young up-and-coming talent as well. And seasoned professionals like I was playing alongside Andy Kotska, Craig Moffat had spent some time at St George, John Kosh, Jason Polak. Up front, we had a guy called Noel Barclay who played for the New Zealand national team, Colin Chua. Ian Heddle had come over from Scotland. Nicky Meredith was in the side.
Yes.
So I was the left stopper. He was the left wing back. Bobby Newmoff, Ralphie Mayer. These guys that came through KB United sort of set up. And then Bruce Stow had us from 91 to 93. And then
what was his coaching style like? What was it if you had to typify that era, those first couple of years?
Yeah, it's very he's very English, so it's all about structure, keeping the ball, but be direct with the ball. Try and get the ball forward as quickly as possible. Different style today, and it was like 4-4-2, the standard 4-4-2 formation. We had some minor success. I think we finished 7th or 8th on the table that year, but it was good to play for the entire season except the very first game, and then I played every game the next season under Stow as well.
Yep.
And that's the likes of Warren Spink came that year. and then Darren Stewart came into the side. So we had some really good guys coming back as well.
Yes.
But there was one game that stands out. It was a game against the Socceroos in January '92. So it was that first year that I was playing.
Okay.
And they were playing a series against Sweden, and we were sort of in the middle of the in their build-up, so to speak. And we played them at Breaker Stadium in front of a full house with a few young guys. And Warren Spink, I was up against Warren Spink this night, and obviously all the internationals, Jurakovic, Zabika in goals, you had Ned Zelic in the team, Paul Wade, and we won famously 3-1.
Oh, wow.
The Breakers team outplayed the Socceroos.
Yes, bit of a touch-up. Yeah.
Touch-up. And before the game, Eddie Thompson was interviewed, and he was saying, look, there's no such thing as a friendly. We're going to treat this as an international.
And so should, yes.
And then when we touched it up 3-1, I actually played a pretty good game that game, and I got voted man of the match.
Oh, congratulations. Awesome.
Was presented with the match ball, with the signed match ball. And that was a proud moment for I was 20.
Who were you marking that day?
Warren Spink.
Oh, yes. So you would have a lot of practice, obviously, marking him at training every week, and so you get to mark him in the game.
Warren Sid Spink, but this was before he came to Newcastle.
Okay, before he came. All right.
That was the game that made him come to Newcastle.
Really?
He loved the area so much, the setup. And then he said from that moment, that's the time that he said he wanted to come and play for Newcastle. And he did come and play for us in the 93-94 season, the year after.
So to me, somebody who had a deft touch, if you had him in front of goal, he did whatever he wanted to, really. He was very, very dangerous. I always remembered Warren as a very dangerous, but he was also a character. So have you got any Warren Spink stories?
I do, as a matter of fact. My second game, I told you about my first game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through every game. We'll be here all night. But my second game, Sasha, was against Preston Macedonia at the Skinner Reserve, I think it was called. And, it's back in them days, you got a few stairs, the sheds, you come out the players' race, you're going through barbed wire.
Yes.
And here I am against Mark and, Socceroo again, Warren Spink. And they got young Chris Trajanowski up front as well. I think John Markowski was in the side. So we just beat South Melbourne the week before. And we end up winning 2-1. So my first two games were wins against South Melbourne and Preston Macedonia on their home soil. But for 45 minutes after the game, we were locked up in our dressing rooms because the crowd was so unhappy with the result. They were banging on the windows. They were throwing stuff through the change room windows. We had to get a police escort out of the ground.
Yes. So the very passionate Macedonian people there at Preston, BT Connor Reserve. Yes. So I know, and I know exactly where the change rooms, where you're talking about are, and you'd be able to hear them well and truly yell through those.
Spray they were giving you, that's for sure. But some of them Melbourne grounds. I know you're a Melbourne guy, and you used to support Footscray Just, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, going to Albert Park and playing at Albert Park at the South Melbourne ground, going to Melbourne Croatia's ground.
Yes.
Summer Street.
Yes.
I'm thinking, first time I went to Summer Street, Sasha, I'm thinking, what's all this?
Where is this?
Where is the football ground?
Yes.
And you're there, and then there's a bit of a shed, bit of a stand. Oh, there's a pitch, great teams obviously down there as well. But we had a supporters base. This is the old NSL, don't forget. And you got your, you got them cultures of the Greeks and the Italians, and that's what we've lost in this game a bit now in the A-League. We've lost that connection with the fans, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. So hopefully that comes back. I think it might with time, but I'd have to agree with you. There was a lot more passion. And there's been an element where I think some of that passion was wanted to come out in the new A-League, and the administration's probably tried to stifle that with active support.
They have a bit. We've seen a little bit of the Wanderers support.
Yeah.
Newcastle used to have the squadron, for instance, and they used to have a bay at the stadium there where they could support the Newcastle team. But going way back to my time, when we travelled to Melbourne, we'd have a group of guys. There'd only be 12 of them, and they'd have a banner over the fence. They call themselves the Newcastle Nutters. And you think,
and they probably were too.
They were nutters, I'm telling you, because there was 12 of them, or how many? There wasn't many, and they're all they're up against the packed stadiums of Summer Street and Albert Park. We got a couple of results down there, and we celebrated with them. But that's just a couple of above the board stories that I can tell you about.
So there's the active support. Once they take that banner out, they make sure that they keep that banner at the end of the game. And let me tell you, there's a couple of boys on the other side that want to take the banner and hold it upside down. So and if it's 12 boys holding a banner, you better make sure that they're nutters. Yeah. So you played a total of well over 200 games, I think. Just shy of 250 games. I think it was a 234 thereabouts.
234, correct. 234 for Newcastle, and don't forget the 4 goals, Sasha.
Yes. So it takes special moments to score those goals as a defender. So
it does, because you're not given too many opportunities.
Exactly.
I didn't really get to go up for corners or set pieces because I was deployed at the back to keep up with the pace. So most of my career I was deployed as a mere marker because no one could beat me at fitness or at that pace. There'd be more technical players than me, but my speed and my fitness would cover me for positional play, the reading of the game.
Yeah.
So
plus you had an engine. It's not just about your pace. You could run all day. So
don't forget that background that I've had with going to the little nippers, running on the beach in summer, therefore, and so on, and always do extras, always extras. So many people I've heard them speak over the years, and it'd be always those guys that, had the potential that would want to do the extras at training where they stay back or work on their fitness, work on this part of their game, that get to the level they want to get to.
So walk us through those 4 goals. Yeah, I'm sure you can remember.
So the very first one, I'm one of few people in National League history to score inside my own half.
Oh wow!
So we're playing Heidelberg at the Olympic Village.
Yes.
A typical wet Melbourne windy day.
That's a big ground too. That's a very big ground. It's not a small ground. Yes.
Olympic Village. So I scored from 52 metres out.
Oh, wow.
And it was a part clearance, a part me giving the ball forward to Rod Brown. Rod Brown was a striker at the time. Yes. I seen him make a run forward to accept the ball. And I've hit it so hard, Sasha, it's gone over his head, bounced in front of the keeper, Heidelberg keeper. He's come running out. It's gone over his head into the goal.
Happy days. What was the celebration?
1-0. 1-0. I couldn't believe it. I had to celebrate. So I used to celebrate my goals by doing the aeroplane. So I've gone on the aeroplane, mate. I couldn't believe it.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. So that's goal number 1.
That, mate, you have to do your stats. Look up how many people scored inside their own half in National League history. There wouldn't be many.
No, that's a very big ground. So one bouncing in. Happy days. So how long did you have to wait before you scored your second?
Okay, so that was in 93. So my next goal was against Brisbane in 99. So quite a long time. And I remember it well because it was during the Lee Sterry time. So Lee Sterry came to the club in 98. So he played me in a different role. And, we had the likes of Andy Harper, John Bonavolia, Bobby Cutler in goals, a host of locals, myself, Mark Wilson, Shane Price, Todd McManus, all these guys that really gelled well and played good football under Lee Sterry because we knew our roles. We were very structured. We'd give teams the ball basically and set up So we get on the counter attack.
Yes.
No Harper up front would hold it. John
Yeah.
Bonavoglia, we used to call him the dynamic duo. He used to run off Harper, and we'd done really well that season. But this goal came because Lee Sterry, I was deployed in midfield that year.
Okay.
And I was getting forward a lot more. So I'd come close a few times a couple of weeks before. But it was a goal, I remember, and it was a lung bursting run. The ball went from right back, from Glenn Sprott, I think, or Glenn Moore, over to my left wing back, Brad Witcherak. And I made a box-to-box run, Sasha, from my own penalty box to the penalty box. And he's crossed it over. And at that very moment, I've leaped up and I've headed it from the 18-yard box. And when I finished, I ended up on the penalty spot. I was going that fast. And the header went straight in past Clint Bolton, the Brisbane keeper at the time. And John Cosmina had let me go to Canberra the year before. So it was a very special moment for me. I celebrated in front of him and let him know.
As you do.
Let him know for letting me go. He made the mistake. And
Yes.
So that was my second goal.
So let's fantastic. So let's rewind that. I mean, so how did you feel when, obviously this is your boyhood club. I mean, and I'm sure you would have when you're a local boy, and on Newcastle's budget, you're not. I don't want to cast aspersions, but it's not one of the glamour sides like South Melbourne or a Marconi, that would go and try and buy leagues.
Yeah, you're right. No salary caps in those days, but like you say, it was semi-professional.
Yeah.
Most guys were part-time players. There wasn't too many players that were full-time in my team.
Yeah.
The likes of Warren Spink, Darren Stewart were.
Yeah.
They were full-time players, and they'd play the NSL season. They go over to Malaysia and play to earn a living and earn a good living. But they were internationals as well. So, like most guys like me, I had full-time jobs.
Yes.
I had to work in the menswear store, which I own today.
Yep.
I've worked there 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I'd even play on game days, for Christ's sake. I would play on Friday night after working a full day. I'd go from work straight to the ground, play the game, come back and work in the shop on the next day on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So
shower, then back at the store on your feet. Yep.
In the bag of fruit, the suit, and away you go. But that's what you had to do.
Yep.
To play at that level, and most guys did it. Whether they're labourers or truck drivers or school teachers, like Ralphie Mayer was. He travelled to Sydney later in his career, but he came back to Newcastle. Flash Jennings, they were all part-time players at some stage.
Yeah.
So.
And it's testament to all you boys who did admirably on that kind of sort of curriculum of work and then football and work and football.
Yeah.
And so you let go and you head across to Canberra. I mean, Canberra pick you up. And so from memory, I think Branko Kalina had the side that year. Is that?
Yeah, he did.
Have I got the numbers right? Okay, so.
So that was in 97, 98 season, and Branko just won the NSL title with Sydney
Croatia. Yeah.
Same game against Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium, or the old Lang Park, in front of 40,000 plus. So he was scouted by Canberra to go there, and he approached me because he knew that I had something to offer the team. And there was a good chance I wasn't going to be at Newcastle because Cosmina was out of favour. And as in your career, coaches see different things in you. It wasn't that I was a bad player.
Anything said? Any words said or anything? Or was just you were just out of favour?
No, I respect Cozzy for what he was and what he did as a coach. But, me and him, and like a lot of other players didn't see eye to eye. I wasn't in favour with him. I wasn't a first choice selection for first 11 player for him. And I wanted to play first team football.
Yep.
So I respect that he let me go because it done me a favour because I got picked up by Branko Kalina, who just won the title with Sydney, Croatia. Yep. I went to Canberra with a good team, but when I was down there, we actually didn't perform that well.
Yep.
I remember the first ever game that we played in Canberra. It was up against Sydney United. It was his old team. Yep. And David Mitchell was the striker, so I was up against David Mitchell, and I copped a pretty bad concussion in that game. I got elbowed to the back of the head,
Okay.
and I remember it. I just before half time, I walked in the players' race, and Branko Kalina's given us a team talk at half time in the sheds, and I've stood up to go out for the second half, and I've collapsed.
Oh wow!
Because of the blow to the back of the head.
Yeah.
And I spent the next day in hospital in Canberra Hospital.
Oh wow!
But we missed a penalty that game, a crucial miss, because we ended up losing 2-1.
Oh.
Yeah. We lost the first 5 games straight, and we came up against Brisbane, and we beat Brisbane, luckily, and that sort of set us on our pathway. But Branko was let go by the club with 4 games to go, and I got we got Raleigh Rasic as the for the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah, so
it was an honour, honestly, Sasha, to be coached by him, because such a great man, and a great presence. Looking back over my career, had many coaches, and all coaches have good and bad points, but Raleigh Rasic, he would get you in the shed before training even. You'd spend an hour in there, and you'd be out at training on the training ground an hour later, because he'd be telling you about the 74 Socceroos. But that was fine, because he made you feel 6 foot tall.
Yes.
He would run through brick walls from the stories that he told you about the 74 Socceroos. Well, and repetition at training. He was, and because you've been repetition of his drills and everything at training, it would become second nature in the game.
I've met many men, but it's one person that has real true gravitas as a person, and he uses psychology in his team talks, and really tries to empower players. So well ahead of his time.
He's a great man.
You got to be a month or 2 with him. That's fantastic. But then you get an opportunity again to be part of your beloved Newcastle side. So how did that transpire? Obviously, the movement back. So was it a foregone conclusion when Cosmina wasn't going to be there that you were going to be back?
Well, as you know, in football, nothing's guaranteed. So I had a 2-year contract when I signed with Canberra. Okay. So after Branko Kalina got asked to leave, Raleigh Rasic came in, and he took over as caretaker coach. And as it turned out, John Cosmina was let go by the Breakers at the time. The end of that season, 97-98, and Lee Sterry got appointed coach.
Yep.
Lee contacted me to say, "Look, Andy, do you want to come back to Newcastle? We're building a good side up here." And I asked for release from Canberra and came back in the 98-99 season to join my beloved Newcastle again. And under Lee Sterry, I played probably some of my best football because he brought in Harper, John Bonavolia, Bobby Catlin, and then locals that I mentioned, Todd McManus, Mark Wilson, Shane Price. And he built a side around some youth and experience, and we really got to know our roles. And not so well in the first season he had us, but in the 99-2000 season, I actually remember it as one of my next goals, Sasha, my 3rd goal. We were playing Morwell Falcons up here at Breaker Stadium, and we won that game 2-1, and we went top of the league with 6 weeks to go.
Yes, that was the year that you probably should have capitalised. That was your that had to be the best year, I think, of your time there at Newcastle. Would you agree with that?
At the Breakers, very much so, because momentum in sport's a big thing, and we had a lot of momentum that year. We went 9 games unbeaten. I think there's still a record in Newcastle history. We went 9 games unbeaten. And then we had a bout of very wet weather that cancelled a lot of games at Breaker Stadium, because, as you know, the old Breaker Stadium was built on a swamp. And you get a very heavy shower of rain, and the games would be called off because it was just a quagmire because of the built on this swamp. So we had to make up games. We had a spate of 3 games we had to play in 7 days on these heavy pitches. And one of the crucial games was against Parramatta Power, and they ended up beating us 1-0. Joel Griffiths, the young Joel Griffiths, scored the penalty, and we missed 2 that night. And then, you know, we had a couple of bad results go against us, but that wasn't the big turning point for us. But we should have made the semi-finals on our own back that year, and at least pushed for, you know, would have been the first Newcastle team into the semi-finals in NSL.
Yeah, and probably based. This is the one thing that people don't talk about, but probably based on budgets, because that year those Sydney boys were travelling up to Newcastle on each occasion. They didn't move.
Week they travel up. They carpool. You know, the likes of Bobby Cullen, John Bonavoglia, even Glenn Sprott. He was from the Central Coast, and he was a truck driver, so he did do his, you know, day's work as a truck driver and come up and train. Yeah. But just they're different times. But that's what you had to do to play at the highest level in Australia at that time.
Yeah. What was that? Who did you over the years? Who did you room with on most occasions? So who was the
different players. But the guy I can tell you didn't want to get was Mark Wilson.
Okay, why is that?
You know, Mark's played 190 odd games for Newcastle. He's a great friend, but he had chronic sleepwalking habits. He was the one guy, Sasha, you didn't want to get with, and I was lucky enough in my career of 12 or 13 years, I only got with him a couple of times. But, you know, guys would be afraid to get Mark Wilson because of this chronic
sleepwalking
habit he had, you know, because you'd be there asleep and next moment you'd be standing over you, you know, in the middle of the night. Can you imagine that? You're thinking, where's this guy? Who's this guy? Is this the intruder or something? But often he'd go walking out of the hotel onto the, you know, if we're in Melbourne, outside somewhere. And luckily I didn't room with him. But, you know, obviously, you know, rooming with Darren Stewart, he was a bit of a mentor for me. And I remember one famous story. This is going back early in the Breakers times. We were playing Melbourne, Croatia at the old Summer Street ground, and we're losing the game, and this young guy, I can't even remember his name. It was in injury time. He come on, he started giving lip to Darren Stewart, right? Okay. So, you know, Socceroo, hard as nails, tough defender. And he said to me, Robbo, he said, tell me when the linesman's not looking. I said, rightio, Daz. About 30 seconds later, the linesman's not looking, Darren. And then next minute, Sasha, he has clenched his fist and he's hit this young bloke for giving him lip right in the jaw.
Wow.
This young guy's teeth has gone everywhere.
Oh, wow.
This has made national news. It's on, you know, we're involved in a pitch invasion. All the players in the melee, and you got the likes of Stabbermarth and Darren Stewart going at each other. The crowd's involved. You know, the referee called full time. We've run down the players' race. Beer bottles and everything's coming through the players' race. Yes. And we're in the dressing sheds here again for the next hour, waiting for the police.
For everybody to go home, right? Yes.
Oh, but there you go. I'll never forget that time.
Those Melbourne Croatian supporters, they're quite passionate. And that Melbourne Knights, Melbourne Croatian team with the likes of Stabbermarth, he was quite a burly character. I'm sure that melee would have been interesting. Yeah. How many? Do you remember how many weeks he copped for that?
He copped a few because it wasn't obviously you know he's brought in the tribunal and a few other players. Craig Carter, the goalkeeper, he threw a couple of punches, and I'm a lover, not a fighter, and I could run. So I was in the background, Sasha. So,
okay, I understand.
I wasn't throwing any punches, mate. That's for sure. So.
Yes, a smart decision. You don't get the weeks when you don't throw the punches. We need to obviously talk about your last goal. Obviously, we haven't got to that yet. So, do you remember your last goal for Newcastle?
Yeah, it was around about 2001 actually, when we were down at playing against Belmore, down at Sydney Olympic at Belmore rather, and I just made one of them famous back post runs that Paul Wade used to make,
Yep.
And the ball was clipped over at the far post, and here I am, free header, bang, straight past Clint Bolton again.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so here comes the aeroplane again for only the fourth time in 256 NSL games. So you got to enjoy it while you can, mate.
Yes. So now you're going to tell us how many own goals you scored, mate. So here we go. First own goal.
More own goals. I probably scored more own goals than I was credited for, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I know that's the thing about being in defence, right? Sometimes they're not. You do your best, right? Yeah. But you try and send them the other way. But sometimes they end up in the back of the net, right? So not our fault being defenders, not our fault. We do our best to send them the other way, but sometimes, unfortunately, any silly ones that you want to comment? Any silly own goals that you did? Not the ones that you tried to clear and they went in, but any like.
There was, the ones that come across the face of the goals from a cross, and you can't get out of the way because you're running so hard to get back to try and cover. But then ones that come across the goals and hit you, you're trying to clear it, but it's going that way and it goes in the goals. Yeah,
that's not that silly. They're hard actually sometimes to defend because you're running with full force and you're trying to hoof the ball, and so I don't think that.
You feel bad. You feel bad when you score a goal that might cost your team the game, but you don't mean it, of course.
Yeah. So
we got a bit of a ribbon, but anyway, that's what.
Now, strikers, because you marked a mini striker in your time, and who would you say was the most cunning striker to mark? Who would you go, if I had to mark?
Obviously I was deployed as a mere marker for most of my career, built on, that speed and fitness and the ability to read a game and cancel players out and take them out of the play. The likes of, Brad Maloney, Bobby Despotowski, Damien Murray. I played against Frank Farina at the latter stage of his career when he came back from overseas. Jim Patikas, a young Mark Viduka at Melbourne Croatia in the early days when he just come out of the AIS. But, obviously different players with different styles. But, if you had to pick one, because let's not forget, I backed myself on fitness and ability. Yes. No one could outrun me for 90 minutes. So I had him covered there, but it was more positional play. Definitely Damien Murray, because he could match me on pace and fitness. And you didn't want to get too close to the likes of Damien or Frog and Murray, as they called him, because he'd roll you. Yep. So if you get too close to the attacker and they can feel you, that's the time that they might get by you. So and obviously
he was so strong. Obviously, Murray was so strong. Yeah,
very strong. Yeah. Obviously, young Mark Viduka, because he'd just come out of the AIS, Sasha, and he'd scored a host of goals, and he'd playing for the Melbourne Croatia team. And I remember playing against him. I didn't win a header against him all day, but position-wise, he would use you and he'd grab you as well and just try and roll you. Yeah. Obviously, you knew because he's so young, but that much ability, he's going to go on to play, and he's had a distinguished career. I had some great battles with Brad Maloney. Also, in the time we played at Perth and Sydney Olympic. And I'll tell one famous story because Lee Sterry, he would have us, so worked up. And I just knew my role all week, and the commentators had built it up. Andy Roberts is going to be marking Brad Maloney. This is going to be a great battle. And this famous game at Breakers Stadium when he was playing for Marconi, I knew that all week I was going to be playing against him. And it was a big game because we were on the cusp of making the semi-finals. And Lee Sterry said, "Now, Robbo, I want you to get so close to him you can smell his aftershave." Right? So that meant, Sasha, that I had to get very, very close to him all game. And he said, "I don't want you to leave him all game." This is before the game. So there was a break in play. There's a break in play just before half time. And I think someone went down injured. So Brad Maloney's gone over to get a drink from the sideline, and Frank Farina's thrown him the drink bottle. So I've gone over and followed him, and he's thrown the drink bottle, and I grabbed it, and I've had a drink of his drink bottle. Then I threw it back to him. Or I threw it back to Frank Farina.
Fantastic. Doing your job.
In his face.
Yep.
And then half time blows. So we're walking off the players' race, and at the old Breakers Stadium, our home room is that room just there, and the away team is just there.
Directly opposite.
Opposite, completely opposite. So what I did, I took it to the next level. I walked in the Marconi dressing room, following Brad Maloney.
What did they say when you rocked up?
Like you just did then. They're all going, what's Andy Roberts doing in our sheds? And I said, I've been given a man marking job and I'm not leaving Brad Maloney.
That's quality.
So after about 30 seconds, I nicked off to our dressing room and Lee Sterry goes to me, General, where you been? I said, well, Lee, you told me to not leave Brad Maloney, so I've been in the Marconi dressing room. So they all just cracked up as well. I think, so this the lengths you go to put your opponent off.
Yes, and this is the psychology of play. You would have got under his skin. Did he say anything in the second half to you about that?
Not really. He just tried to run away from me all game.
Yeah. Did you get the cookies that night?
I think so. I think it ended up a draw. It could have been one of the games I scored an own goal because I was trying to get out of the way, mate.
Yeah.
That's one of the occasions that just stood out in my mind about going to the next level.
Oh yes. So
put your opponent off.
So obviously, did you ever? Who are those opponents that would be aggressive and throw those maybe untoward elbows? Did you cop any of those from any of the?
I got 3 bad concussions in my career. So David Mitchell, the game when I first played with Canberra, was one of them. There was another incident where I got hit by the ball in the back of the head and a delayed concussion. But the one guy that stands out with the elbows, you say about elbows and putting the elbows out, Francis Waratifi.
Yes.
Big Francis, 6'4", don't forget, and I'm only like 5'11", so I'm not going to win the ball too much with a header. So he would be tough to mark because not only he's a big guy, but
he's very awkward.
Well, Sasha, I'd be copping elbows in their head.
Yeah.
See, Vaughan Coveney was another one.
Yes. Another awkward sort of player to mark. I mean, Francis Waratifi was always very awkward, and it wasn't the first time that he would get carded for being just awkward. But he also knew where to find the goals. Both of those players knew where to find the goals, but very awkward. I mean, Vaughan obviously wasn't awkward. Francis very awkward.
Yeah.
Vaughan just very, very, very quick.
Very quick and physical, but lanky as well because he used the arms. I copped an elbow from Vaughan Coveney in the first minute of the game. It was during the Newcastle United days at Energy Australia Stadium, and I spent the next 90 minutes about complaining with my jaw and busted teeth. And I ended up playing out the game, but I didn't discover till after the game. I spent
busted jaw.
6 hours in the dentist chair because I had a dislocated jaw.
Oh,
so that's the pain. That's because of the adrenaline you're going for. You don't want to give an inch to your opponent.
Yes.
I ended up playing with a dislocated jaw all game.
Oh, wow.
So the pain you go through as a footballer, mate.
Yes, the things you do for the love of football, eh? So, so your time, obviously, at Newcastle, like with everything that comes to an end, you had a number of coaches there at your time. You said obviously you learned from each one of them, but which period do you feel that which coach do you feel that you had the best cohesion in the group, the best feeling, the greatest bond of players?
Well, that period where we had the Lee Sterry come into the club from 98 to 2000 was a great period. We had a great culture in the team because we weren't even fancy to make or get near the semi-finals, but we almost made it. We were top of the league, like I said, with 6 weeks to go.
Yeah.
And
what is it that Lee did that instilled that? Because you saw many people come and go.
I did.
Where you were the constant of that side. So what was it that Sterry brought to obviously galvanise the group and obviously make you believe and play better than maybe you were on paper? What was that he did?
Obviously instilling the culture, structure. We all knew our jobs. Sasha, when we went out to play, I knew my job. I just had to to go out and take out a Damien Murray or keep him quiet or a Brad Maloney. And when they didn't have the boys to give an option or get forward, the likes of Andy Harper, John Bonavoglia, the guys at the back, Shane Price, Glenn Spride, Todd McManus, Mark Wilson in midfield, we all knew our jobs and we were playing with such confidence. I remember going out playing against the likes of South Melbourne and Marconi and know we're going to win. And that's a feeling that I didn't have a lot when I was playing for Newcastle. Later on, when I was coached by Ian Crook and Gary Van Egmond, when we made the preliminary final, like we did then. But going back, that was like the first time that I felt a part of a Newcastle team that we could actually do something and reach the finals and make an impact.
Yeah.
Like I tell a famous story also about Lee Sterry. When we go and play Marconi, right, they call it the Palace for a reason. So back in the old days, and I'm sure you've been to Marconi Stadium, and the beautiful club they have there.
Yep.
That's why they call it the Palace. So when we turn up for the game, the team bus normally pulls up at the back of the stadium, so the players can just walk in just there to the dressing room. Lee Sterry didn't do that. He pulled up in front of the beautiful foyer in front of the club.
Oh wow!
And he said, "Boys, I want you to walk through the club and see what these guys have." So he's us in our tracksuits. We're walking through the Marconi Palace, the beautiful palace they call it, and we're seeing the marble here, marble there, and it was just an eye opener to see what other teams had and we didn't have. So we used to call us the Volkswagens of the competition, up against the Silvertails and the Rolls Royces.
Wow!
You see? So he instilled that belief that we could do anything.
Yes.
So that's where it started. And like I said, when we turned professional in 2001, and Ian Crook, Con Constantine ended up buying the club.
Yep.
And became Newcastle United. That's when it went to the next level. And, I had to give away my menswear job at the shop and be a full-time player. And that's all I wanted to do at that stage was be a full-time player. And for 3 years, I was a professional player, and it's something that I don't ever take for granted because I'd worked so hard to get there and be a professional player. And it was during that time that we're training twice a day then, and I had all this time, Sasha. I wasn't used to this. I was used to working the hard graft through the week at the store, at the menswear store, going to play at the Breakers Stadium or Energy Australia Stadium on Friday night. And now I had all this free time. It was fantastic. This is a life that I wanted to have as a professional footballer. And, I speak to guys like even David Lowe and some of the greats of the area, Graham Flash Jennings, and they said to me, very early age, don't ever take your career don't take it for granted because it goes so quickly.
Yes.
So that's why I try and teach young guys now, give your best and put in the extras, but don't ever take football for granted because your career goes so quickly.
And you obviously you're still involved in your support and your business now with the Breakers. So thank you for your continued contribution supporting Australian football in the little way that you can now. And you would have seen a number of boys that come through since your time there. They're fine words of wisdom to impart to young footballers wanting to achieve the best now for Newcastle. So thank you for that contribution. I wanted to touch on, how did you get your nickname, The General?
Okay, so we have to go back for this one. So, it was during that time of the Lee Sterry era, and we had a lot of characters in the dressing room that year. You had the likes of, Mark Wilson, Anthony Surgeon, he'd come to the club from Wollongong, and young guy called Brad Wicherak, who played in front of me as the left wing back. I was left full back. And Brad Wicherak started calling me the General because the Newcastle Knights had pulled the Chief Harrigan.
Mm-hmm.
So he started calling me the General Roberts because we had to have something, in our team the Chief. So the General, and also because in Newcastle there's a famous pub in New Lambton near West Leagues Club called the General Roberts Hotel.
Okay.
So he started calling me the General Roberts, and it's stuck ever since.
That's a fantastic story. So, and all the boys jumped on fairly quickly with the General. It stuck.
It stuck, mate. Yeah, it stuck, and
and did your personality lend to lead? Were you always a leader of the side as well? So you instilling the values of leadership in the Newcastle side, the standards, etc.
Yeah, of course, and being a club captain when we went to that professionally, we were under Ian Crook and Gary Van Egmont from 2000 to 2003 when I finished up. You know, you had the likes of young Joel Griffiths coming to the club from Sydney, and he was a young prodigy at the time. And you know, very early on, I took him under my wing and I said, Joel, this is what it means to play for Newcastle. You make sure you put in 90 minutes every week and give your all for Newcastle and give your all for the team, and they will love you. So, you know, you don't have to win every game, but at least give 100%.
Yes.
Put in every time you cross that line, because also tell a famous story that every time I was very superstitious, Sasha, and most sports people are. Most sports people are when they play at the top level. Always had to wear number 3. Always had to be third out in line.
Okay. Even though you were even the times that you were captain, you didn't walk out first. You worked out third.
Had to be third.
Oh wow.
Had to put my left boot on first. The day before, always eat at 12 o'clock, or the game day of the game, and always have a lasagna meal. Right. This is all in preparation for the game. Right. But walking out the players' race, I came up with this call. I'd say no petrol. No petrol, and I'd yell it at the top of my voice, and opposition teams were like, holy shit, what's he doing? You know? And basically it meant it was a call cry. It was a catch cry call to action.
Yes.
To give everything for your team.
And don't come off with any petrol in the tank. Leave it all out there. Yes.
No petrol. And it was like, I got it from Billy Moore, the Queensland State of Origin guy. I remember he came out in that game in Origin, he said, Queenslander. It was like that for me. I'd say no petrol, and it is sort of bang. We're ready for action.
Everybody knew what you meant. That everyone was going to give their heart to the
It was like white line fever, because you know when you're crossing that line, you are at a sense going into battle.
Yep. Oh, that's brilliant. So so you obviously sensible one in the team, setting the standards, ensuring that the team was going to give its best, and you admirably served your side for many, many, many years. Thank you for your contribution to Australian football. Obviously, you've been a great servant of your beloved Newcastle side in its iterations, and you continue to support that side. So thank you for your contribution to Australian football. I'd just like to ask in a final parting question, if you had to speak to that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boy wanting to go to the next level, what words of advice would you give them?
Never give up, basically, because if you have a desire and a passion, you can achieve everything and anything in life. You know, from that very young age, when I was 8 years old, when I went to watch Newcastle KB United, and I watched many a great player play for Newcastle at a young age. And that's what I wanted to do. Like I said earlier in this interview, I just wanted to play for my hometown. And I represented my hometown a record amount of times, like you said, Sasha, and still to this day hold the record for the most caps for Newcastle. But I saw the likes of Craig Johnson play for Newcastle, who was a Newcastle boy, who at the time had come back and played. He was on loan from Middlesbrough at the time, and I've seen him play a few guest games. In one game, he scored a hat-trick, and he ran rings around these seasoned professionals, or so-called National League players, and it was just a young guy. I saw Bobby Charlton play a guest game. I saw Mick Shannon, that famous English international, used to do the wind-up celebration for the goal. You know, guys like this, and I've become friends with Craig Johnson, so he's like a mentor for me at a very young age. I've met him a few times when I was younger, and now he actually lives in Newcastle.
Yes.
And over the last few years, we've become pretty close friends. And yeah, he is just an inspiration. He was never supposed to achieve anything in football, but he had such a desire. You know, he'd go out and practice left or right, hit the target on the wall, and
Yes.
you know his story. You know, anyone in football knows his story. And he was told by Jackie Charlton he was the worst footballer he's ever seen. And he phoned up his parents and they said, how'd you go at the trial, son? And he said, well, Jackie Charlton said I was the best footballer he's ever seen. And he just hung up the phone because he didn't want to give in, and he just stuck it out. So I say to any young player, if you have a desire and you want to reach the top, is never give up on your dream. If you dream, you believe, you create, and you achieve.
Fantastic words of wisdom. The General Andy Roberts, thank you so much, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's
been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on today, Sasha. When I'm down in Melbourne next time, mate, I'm going to catch up with you. My son's actually studying down there at RMIT in Brunswick. So he's had a tough time like you guys down there in lockdown in the last year. And when I get down there, I'm going to look you up, mate. We're going to go for a coffee down in Lygon Street, Carlton.
Brilliant. Happy days. Look forward to it, sir.
Thanks, Sasha.
Hey, guys. We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.